Hello, guys, and welcome again to a new video from Miss German Let's Talk. Here we dive into the wildest, funniest, and also the darkest Reddit stories that we can potentially find on the internet. So grab a drink, sit back, and let's go right into today's episode. So, what are we talking about today? So, we have a Reddit story here with a question saying, what is your most disturbing, scary, and creepy real story? With like saying in parentheses, serious. So this user wants serious, real, little short stories from us, and we're gonna find out if I will be able to sleep tonight or not because it's getting dark outside and I want to sleep like a baby, but I don't know if I will. So let's start with the first story saying, a few years ago, I was walking through the woods off the beaten track a bit, and I smelled this really overpowering sweet smell. Being noisy, I pulled back the undergrowth to have a look and found a dead body. The guy had clearly been there a while and wasn't looking great, all swollen in green and black with various runny bits. The local wildfire had also been dying well for a few days. Well, what a comment to say here, but okay. I called the police, who told me to wait with the body until they arrived. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took a while for them to arrive, and it got dark, and I was just sat there in the dark with him for a long time. Okay, that's actually creepy. It turned out he had a committed suicide. For a long time afterwards, I had dreams about him, and he would talk to me and not nice things, mainly about how he was angry and I had disturbed his resting place and he wanted me to kill myself. Holy crap! Probably just my imagination, but all pretty disturbing at the time. He still turns up in my dreams from time to time, and no doubt will be tonight after typing. Holy damn. Okay, that is like a really, really crazy story that we're having here. Like, when like those old kind of sayings that you do not disturb someone who was there. Like, can get that, like, psychologically. There is like a person who's who just sat there in the darkness because he said he had to wait for the police to arrive, and then just like he has to wait in the darkness with probably in the middle of nowhere with no lights around, right? Like those little forest parts where you just want to take a walk and it starts to get like dark and there is no light around because I don't know, the community or something don't put freaking lights everywhere. Wait, like they should specific roads, I'm gonna say you guys should put everywhere some little lights so we can see something, but something sometimes like in the middle of nowhere. Okay, we understand. He had committed suicide. That is crazy. Especially it depends how old you are, right? Because if you see like a dead body for the first time, it can be very disturbing for the human mind. And I hope that nobody sees that ever in their life, except when you're of course in healthcare. Then I'm sorry for every of my healthcare men and girlies out there because, guys, but most of them, they are quiet from the environment that I'm in. They are telling me they are quite used to it, and then they're like eating their breakfast, which is quite unimaginable to do. But okay, well, let's say it like this. The user who said this whole story, there is another user who asked him, holy shit, smelled sweet? Because, okay, this is something that I'm like, that I've been like hearing from like one of my best friends who's in nursery school and said, like, if you have like the a death of a patient, then they either smell like two things in the room, more like a sulfur kind of smell or like a sweet smell, which is quite a disturbing as well. So the user with the story said, difficult to describe, sort of like a rotting lamb. People say that a rotting body has a very distinctive smell, and I can see what they mean. That is crazy to have this as a first very, very disturbing story. Um, Honestly, I hope this doesn't happen to anybody. I hope that this person gets some help if those dreams overtake him, but otherwise, it is probably just imagination. If not, then it would be nice to probably go to a church and help for a cleansing. Next story. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night, and the drive was about 2 hours. I didn't stay the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side. The real creepy one you see a lot in movies. Anyways, I had been driving for 45 minutes and I was starting to get really tired. You know how sometimes you just suddenly become really tired out of nowhere? Well, yeah, that's what happens. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and safety sleep. Anyways, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass behind some bushes to try and hide my car from anybody else who was going to come past. The roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then I fell asleep. Sometime later I was awoke by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock, it was 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. Honestly, if I would hear that, and just a little side note, if I would hear that, a scratching noise, I would just like start the freaking engine, doesn't look around me, and just get the fuck out of there, because that's how horror movie starts, guys. Like, you're in the middle of nowhere, you are alone, you hear a scratching noise. Of course, like, reality wise, what would a man do in this situation? They would be like, all right, it was an animal, let's keep sleeping. So I was later awoke by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car, but why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rear view mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the far. Okay, that is freaking creepy. I'm not gonna sleep tonight. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer. You know, the one that scratched that couple cars and then slaughtered the guy when he go out to investigate? Fuck that. I thought to myself, so I got the hell out of there. There was good decision, by the way. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and as I came around it, there was a fucking car parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door opened. I slowed down just to look and see if anyone was in there. There wasn't. Then I looked in my rear view mirror. I didn't see anything. All of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey, 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 you, get the fuck out of your car now. And nope the fuck out of there and speed off. I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story, don't fucking sleep on the side of the deserted road. Yes, of course. I mean, if you're in the middle of somewhere. And that's why we have laws in driving, right? So don't do this. Just don't, okay? Next story. A few summers ago, I went for a bike ride around midnight with a friend. We went our separate ways at the end of the evening, and I had about 2 blocks to ride back by myself. Because of construction, I had to ride on the sidewalk, but the streets were dead, but it wasn't a problem until right where I was about to turn left onto my street, there was this man walking by himself, maybe in his 40s. It's always the man in the 40s, isn't it? A little scruffy, but not homeless. Yeah, it's always the ones. It's always kind of, you get the picture. It's always, yeah. The sidewalk was narrow and I didn't want to freak him out. So when I got about 6 feet behind him, I said, hey, behind you. And he turned around and gave me this super angry look. I turned down me street. Okay. And he started to follow me. Oh, literally screaming about how I was a fucking cunt and he was going to kill me and all that. Could be that it's a crackhead at this point. I live right off the corner and I didn't want him to figure that out, so I decided to do another loop around the block. That's not the scary part. The scary part is that when I looped back around the look down the street. Sorry, he wrote down loop down. Look down the street. I saw him standing on my fucking front stop, staring out at the street like the motherfucker knew I lived there. He saw me ride by again, but he didn't say anything. I ended up going back to the friends, but my bike got stolen from the alley. Of course it is. By the house 2 days ago. Edit the guy in question. Oh, so the user came back and now he edited an update saying the guy in question was definitely not actually homeless. We have a large population of mentally ill in that area, unfortunately, downtown on a medium-sized city, so if I didn't think the sidewalk was too narrow to pass otherwise, I wouldn't have disturbed him. Half the scary part was that he looked pretty much completely normal for my area. That being said, I ended up texting my mom, and she made me the decision not to notify law enforcement until my bike was stolen. So, see, guys, be super careful when it comes to being in sketchy neighborhoods. And also, especially because the bikes thing, it's not a nice thing because, bikes these days, inflations, everything is quite expensive. So, but, well, be careful, kids, be careful. And those stories are, wow, damn. So, I'm so sorry for the bike. I gotta say that. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today's stories, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more. I'll be back soon with more crazy Reddit stories. See you next time. Bye!